We're of course still deep in the Steam sale. I know I've been away for a couple of days, but there's not really been enough for me to talk about in terms of recommendations and stuff that I would actually happily recommend to you guys. But thankfully today there is a fair selection of games that I'd happily recommend, both from the front page and outside of it. So, let's crack on with Mad Max as our first entry. I think this one took a lot of people by surprise because, you know, gaming doesn't have the best history with licensed things, but this was actually pretty damn good. Similar to Horizon Zero Dawn, it doesn't really bring anything new or innovative to the table in terms of what it has to bring to the open world genre of games, but that's not a bad thing. As with Horizon, it just does what it's trying to do very, very well. The world is really interesting, you know, that Mad Max setting, the sort of humorous sidekick brings a fair amount of character to it, and obviously you can trick out your car for the car battles, really make it this cool, spiky death machine like you obviously would want to see in a game like this called Mad Max. The only real downside to this game is the fact that the combat is a fairly generic Arkham style of combat. It's fine, it works, but there's nothing special about it. It is just, oh, okay, let's use Arkham because that's the thing that games do now, right? There's nothing special about it, unfortunately, but that's not enough to bring the game down. It is still a fun game to play. It's still an interesting world to explore, especially for the price of 60% off, making it £6.39. I would definitely say this is worth a go at that price. It's a lot of fun, a lot of explodey fun as well. So for that fairly low price, yeah, definitely worth a look. Moving on to something a bit different, however, with Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Of course, this hasn't been on the PC very long. It only came out on Steam on the 3rd of December, but obviously it was out for years before that on consoles. Obviously, the full price for this game is not exactly expensive, £20, but at 40% off at £11.99, it does make it a bit of an easier proposition, especially when, of course, the game has aged a little bit, and of course we've got the new one coming up soon as well. But for a lot of people, this is an absolute classic that it's probably still being played even on the original consoles it released on. So if you are after a very well realised, very colourful fighting game to play, then yeah, Ultimate vs. Capcom 3 is definitely worth a look-see. I'm not as much into fighting games as I used to be when I was younger, but this is definitely one of the more interesting ones in recent memory, so I'd definitely say this is worth a go. Paul has put a ton of time into this, and I know he loves it, so for that price, yeah, you can't go wrong. It's still fairly hefty for the Steam sale, so perhaps add it to your wish list, but I would say that's a pretty decent reduction given that this game has not been on Steam terribly long. Moving on, however, to a game I've technically recommended before, but now it's on the main page, so I get to talk about it again, and it is Darkest Dungeon. As I mentioned prior to this video, I have actually been playing this on this channel recently. The DLC for this game just released a few days ago, and I've been playing that. There's a couple of videos already up, and there will be a video up to continue that series within the next couple of days. I have put far too much time into this game. It is really, really fun in a sort of dark and depressing way. It is a turn-based RPG, but it is very different to a lot of turn-based RPG. It is pretty rock hard, and it has this really cool sort of Lovecraftian theme with a absolutely excellent announcer in the form of Wayne June, who just brings a ton of character and really lifts the game beyond itself. Without his narration, the game would not be the same. I don't think that is like a key component. But even without that, you know, the theme is really well realised, and the attacks are based upon clearly shown dice rolls, so they are a little bit based on RNG in terms of, like, you know, you can either do 8 damage or 14 damage, whatever it happens to be, and obviously you want the full team, but there's not really much you can do about it. But it all fits the theme of, you know, sort of fighting against an impossible tide, making the best of a bad situation, so it's never really bothered me all that much. The RNG might bother some people, but it's never really bothered me, especially since it is clearly set out, okay, you have a 70% chance to hit, you have a chance to do between 8 to 14 damage, just for example, and obviously you hit for whatever, and obviously there is a chance you can get a crit and get above it as well, so there is all that, and there's quite a lot of strategy involved as well, so I would say this is definitely worth a look-see. Moving on, however, to something quite different to that, it is Dead by Daylight. This is one of the more recent entries in that sort of asymmetrical multiplayer style of game that we've seen a lot of, where you have 4 people fighting against one other person who is a lot stronger than them, but obviously they have the number advantage. And this one is a horror game where one player takes the role of the killer, and the other players are trying to play as a survivor who are trying to escape and, of course, not be caught and horribly murdered. I would say this game is definitely one you need your friends to play with. It's one of those games that is really lifted by the people you play with. This was a bit broken when it first came out, but looking at the recent updates and recent reviews, it has definitely improved. But if you're unsure, perhaps those early videos have put you off, and I wouldn't really blame you, I would say check out some recent streams and stuff. This is obviously not a AAA game, so I wouldn't expect that level of quality, but it does look like it has improved. And I think with the right people, this could be a barrel of fun as well, especially at the reduced price. Unfortunately, no 4 or 5 pack available, but the base game is 40% off, making it £8.99, or you can get the digital deluxe edition, which has the game plus soundtrack and a digital art book, as well as a couple of masks for Payday 2. That's £11.49 at 50% off as well. And there's a bit of a reduction on the 80s suitcase for DLC, which is £1.19. So yeah, I'd say this is a fun one to play with your friends. Speaking of a fun one to play with your friends, we have the Rainbow Six franchise next. Now, Rainbow Six Siege is actually a fairly nice surprise for a lot of people. A lot of people were skeptical about it being multiplayer only, but to be fair, Ubisoft have actually done pretty much everything right with that game. It's still being fairly well played, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. But let's just crack on with the whole thing, because we've got quite a few games to get through here. We do have a Rainbow Six bundle, which is 55% off, making it £25.89. In which you get Rainbow Six Siege, Rainbow Six Vegas, Vegas 2, Rainbow Six Lockdown, and Rainbow Six 3 Gold as well. If you just want the games individually, then Six Vegas is £2.71 at 66% off. But if you're interested in the more modern Siege, that is 40% off at £20.99. Unfortunately, it is still £35 full price, even though it's been out, of course, over a year now, almost a year and a half, I would say. So I'd say, to be honest, unless you've got some friends to play this with, or you think you're going to put a ton of time into it, I'd just call that a wait and see, wait for it to go down a bit more. But that's just me personally. I'm usually not a fan of multiplayer-only games. Overwatch is an exception to that rule, so there you go. Regardless, however, Vegas 2 is also £2.71 at 66% off, and Rainbow Six 3 Gold is £1.18, and Rainbow Six Lockdown is also £1.18. So the older games are definitely an absolute bargain for those prices, and given that some of them are absolute classics, you can't really go wrong. Let's move on, however, from one franchise to another with The Witcher. I don't think this series needs much of an introduction. The Witcher 3 has rightfully taken home an absolute boatload of awards. You know, Game of the Year, numerous awards have given it that, and it's even won awards for its excellent expansions. If you're after an RPG, like a Western RPG, you can do no better than The Witcher 3, to be honest. Because, honestly, it makes all the sort of RPGs that came before it a bit of a joke. It's like, friends of mine say, oh, I'm replaying Skyrim, and I'm like, how can you replay Skyrim when The Witcher 3 exists? I know Skyrim has its own charm. I'm not saying Skyrim is bad now, but The Witcher 3 just has a lot more to offer in terms of its world, its characters, the facial animations even. You know, the world actually reflects what you do, unlike in Skyrim where you can kill a ice-breathing dragon or a fire-breathing dragon or whatever in front of an entire village, but they don't even react. You kill a chicken, all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, he's like the worst human being alive. Even though he murdered a dragon, let's kill him. I'm like, what? You know, The Witcher 3 doesn't have that problem. But the Game of the Year edition for the Wild Hunt, which obviously is the third one, which has all the expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. That's £17.49 at 50% off. That is an absolute steal for all of that stuff. If you're just after the expansion pass, perhaps you already have the base game. It's £9.99 at 50% off. And also, the Wild Hunt just by itself is £14.99 at 40% off. So to be honest, if you're tempted to buy The Witcher 3, in my opinion, you may as well shell out that couple of extra quid and get yourself the expansions for stupidly cheap as well. But The Witcher 2 is £2.24 at 85% off, and The Witcher 1 is £1.04 at 85% off, and The Witcher Adventure Game is also 75% off at £1.74. The Witcher 2, I would say, is definitely worth a play. Witcher 1 has not aged brilliantly, to be honest, but I would say just jump in with The Witcher 3 because it is an absolute blast, and you don't necessarily need to have played the prior ones, I wouldn't say. Go watch a Let's Play or something if you really want to know, but I played a fair chunk of it myself and didn't really feel the need to refresh my memory on the old ones, and it had been quite a while. But our final franchise for that is actually Devil May Cry. So we have some fairly nice reduction on some of these. One of them is bizarrely expensive, to be honest. But we have Devil May Cry 3, the special edition. This is the reworked version where the difficulty is not so stupidly difficult to the point where it wasn't even fun, to be honest. While I appreciate difficult games, you know, I love Dark Souls, I love Darkest Dungeon, all of that, but this game was stupidly hard to the point where it wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy my time with it at all, and I kind of gave up about halfway through. So if you're after it, now that it's been improved, 75% off, £3.99, definitely worth a shout at that price. DMC, Devil May Cry, the most recent one, is of course 75% off, £5.99 as well. Now this one has gotten a lot of flack, but to be honest, a lot of it was undeserved. Like, the changes to Dante himself, that's very a personal thing, whether that will bother you. It didn't really bother me all that much. Dante in this isn't particularly likeable, but Dante was always, you know, very sort of a cheeseball, and I didn't really mind the changes to him that much. It didn't bother me enough to take away from the fact that the game itself was still really, really fun. A bit on the easy side, though, I will say, and it had some interesting decisions with making enemies only be damaged by certain types of weapons. I didn't really like that because it kind of ruined the flow of switching between weapons and getting crazy combos and getting S rank and all this other stuff. But aside from those small niggles, the game is really, really good and has some of the best level design I've ever seen. Seriously, give the game a chance because it is really, really good. The one that's bizarrely expensive is DMC4 Special Edition. Now, I've got this, and I bought it for like £4 something ages ago, so I don't know why it's only 50% off at £9.99, but it is. I would say don't bother at that price. It's weird that it's still that expensive. It's a good game, but is it worth that much now? Probably not, given that the more recent one is more cheaper. Strange. But regardless, let's move on. Next up, we have Cities Skylines. Now, this is another one I have already mentioned in my non-main page stuff on previous videos, but I definitely feel like it's worth another mention, because it is basically the game that everyone wanted SimCity, the new one, to be. It is only 75% off, £5.99, absolute steal. If you're after a city builder that does everything right, pretty much, that is the game that you were probably hoping for from SimCity, without, you know, all the DRM and content taken away and all the weird restrictions and everything else. This is definitely the game for you. This honestly is the best city builder in years, to be quite frank with you, and at that price you can't really argue with it. I've already made these points before, but I just wanted to mention that, you know, this is definitely worth a look-see. But moving on to our non-main page deals, I want to mention something that's technically DLC, but I feel like the game that is based upon it, pretty much everyone ever has. So it is The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth. Now, you can, of course, get Afterbirth Plus, which is definitely something I would consider, but that requires 2 games rather than just 1. Afterbirth only requires Rebirth, which in itself is 50% off at £5.49, and Afterbirth is 40% off at £4.79, but Afterbirth Plus is more recent, and you can only get the bundle for £15.52, which is 40% off. So basically you can buy the 2 games, or you can buy the 3 games. That's essentially what you've got going on here. And of course you could just buy Rebirth, there's nothing wrong with just doing that. Either way, The Binding of Isaac is 100% worth your time. I'm not normally keen on the roguelike style of game unless they're very special, like Gungeon, just for example. But Isaac is very unique in a lot of ways. One of the things I like about it is the fact that each of the runs is fairly short. So that basically means like if I fail, it doesn't feel too bad. I don't feel like I've lost terribly much because it's fairly reasonable once you've learned the basic mechanics of the game. Be able to actually, you know, make it to the end, unlock new characters, get more items and that sort of thing. And to be honest, I learned a lot just from watching videos. I watched a lot of Northern Lion just, you know, as I was working, doing my thing, and just the little tips and tricks that you can learn from someone who's played like 1,000,000 hours of the game is quite useful. So yeah, definitely worth a look-see. It is a very strange game. Definitely not for the easily offended or faint of heart, because the themes within it are, shall we say, rather grotesque at times, and the lore is definitely dark. So if that's not your sort of thing, if you find the idea of, you know, a boss that is nothing but a giant poop disturbing, might want to give this one an avoid. But the only thing I would say against Isaac in general is the combat is very simplistic. It is very sort of basic. You fire in one direction and you move. That's literally it. And what you fire is very dependent on the items that you have and the cool interactions you can get between those items. That's also what makes it fun, is that, you know, you can get some really bizarre effects by combining different items together and experimenting and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I would definitely say this is worth a go. But let's finish up this video with one of my absolute favourite games of recent memory in Transistor. This is by the guys over at Supergiant Games, who of course gained a lot of well-earned fame with the game Bastion, that also had been on sale a billion times. This is their follow-up to Bastion and is 85% off, making it £2.24, or you can get it plus the soundtrack for £3.29. I would say the soundtrack is 110% worth it, but if you just want to buy the base game, I wouldn't really blame you. Now, this is a very, very different game to Bastion. You know, it is still an action RPG, but you can also do a sort of tactics RPG style thing where you can plan your moves. You can even just move around freely, attack as you would normally, or you can kind of pause the game and plan out your moves. So if you say, oh, I want to hit him, and then I want to move over here, and then you unpause the game and you do those actions. So you can take a more strategic approach if you want, and I would say that mode is actually required later on in the game when all the enemies get more hectic and that sort of thing, and you have all these sort of abilities that you can get over the course of the game, and the worlds and graphics are absolutely beautiful. The story is definitely worth an explore. It's a game that I would heartily recommend. It's one of the best games of that year, which was of course 2014, so I would definitely say Transistor is worth a solid look-see. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.